Hey everybody, it's Big Andrew here, coming home or from my home gym here in the Bulletproof Temple Factory. Just finished a short but effective press workout, 50 reps on the bench in as few sets as possible. Let's go back and look. I think I did it in 5 sets. Not the way you think. I didn't do like 10, 10, 10. It was a little more difficult than that. And I'll have that video up soon on YouTube and Instagram and stuff like that. If it's not up by the time you see this, it will be up soon. Okay. Anyway, but at the end of that workout, short workout, did some tricep stuff, and now I'm going to come to you and I'm going to talk to you, my friends and strangers that I don't know, about some things. First thing I want to talk to you about is a man that I grew up idolizing. This man was like family, even though he wasn't family. I loved him to death, and I wouldn't have done anything for him. And that is my former pastor. His name is Rex McPherson. And he died last year, almost exactly a year ago to the day, right after Thanksgiving. We're here at the end of October. We're about 11 months from when he died. And he had Parkinson's and other issues, and eventually it took him. And he preached several sermons through my life that I heard and remember. 2 of them in particular I really remember. One of them, most recent one that I remember, that sticks out in my mind. I mean, I heard the man preach thousands of times, but the one that sticks out in my mind the most is a sermon called Champions for God. And he talked about being a champion for God and standing up for something, like David and Goliath. When David went up to his brothers in 1 Samuel, was it 16, I believe it is, when he goes up to his brothers and he asked them, he says, "Why is this Philistine coming down and threatening you?" He's like, "Well, he's been doing it for 40 days. And he's like, "Why isn't somebody standing up for us? Why isn't somebody standing up against this guy?" And the phrase there is there not a cause? And then that comes from that story. And he says, "Is there not a cause? Why can't we just take care of this guy? We need to take care of this guy." And he stood up, and we all know the story. You know the story. We've turned it into an allegory of sorts of the good and evil, the giant versus the little guy, the David and Goliath story, where David goes down to the brook, gets 5 smooth stones, puts one of them in a sling, swings around, and whips that thing, nails him right in the middle of the forehead. The giant falls down, bam, face down, and then David climbs up on top of the giant. He was a small person. As people say, he was probably a young adolescent, maybe 13 to 15 years old. Stands up on top of this guy who, by what we can measure, based on what we're given in the Bible, was between 9.5 and 10 feet tall, probably. I mean, big dude. And he pulls out the giant sword, which is probably about as big as David. It's a big broadsword, and cuts his head off and takes it to Saul and claims his prize. And he saves Israel by killing the Goliath giant. Great story. Love that story. He preached on that, and he said, "Why can't we have more champions? People who will stand up when there's nobody else to stand up. People who will take a stand and will do something, and their life will mean something." And the thought there is, like, if you were to be written about, would your life be like David and be an allegory for other people to follow? You know. Recently, in recent weeks, we've had a death of another man who was a champion for so many causes, specifically for the cause of Christ. He preached to thousands at a time, probably millions online have heard him, and gave the gospel out in clear words many times, and spoke truth in love, which is not an easy thing to do for some people. The Bible tells us we're supposed to speak the truth in love, but it's not always easy to speak the truth in love. A lot of times we just want to speak the truth and leave the love part off and just tell people where they're wrong. But Charlie Kirk did just that. And Charlie Kirk, from everything I can read about the guy, everything I can see about him, and with Turning Point and all these things, everything that I know based on what I'm able to find. Seems like he was a good guy. Loved the Lord, loved his family, and loved his country. And he was, of course, killed for speaking the truth. And he didn't deserve to die like that. All that being said, right after that, there were lots of posts online of people saying things like, if you go to church and your pastor this past Sunday did not mention or talk about Charlie Kirk being martyred, you need to find a new church. Your pastor is not preaching to you what he needs to be preaching to you. He's not helping you. And I'm going to tell you right now, people that are saying that have no idea what they're saying. None. The pastor's job is to give you the message that God gives him to give you. If Charlie Kirk's death or any other current events fits into that, he can do it. But it could be that that particular day, the Sunday after Charlie Kirk's death, that the death of Charlie Kirk didn't fit into your pastor's sermon. God gave him something to go in a different direction. Maybe because the people of your church might already have that in their minds. And God wanted to give them something else to think about so that they don't become obsessed with the death of this man. Good man. Good man who was saying the right things, doing the right things, acting right. He was a good man. From all accounts, a good man. I don't want to take anything away from him, from his wife, from his organization. But Charlie Kirk is not Jesus. Charlie Kirk is still dead. Jesus is still alive. Jesus died. He was buried. He rose again 3 days. If your pastor is preaching more on Charlie Kirk than he is on Jesus, you need to find a new church. You need to find a new place to go because your pastor is doing you a disservice. If your pastor is spending more time this time of year telling you about how wicked Halloween is or how okay Halloween is, if your pastor spends more time talking about social issues or current events or anything like that and doesn't give you Jesus, you need to find a new pastor. You need to find a new church. We need to shut down some of these dadgum mega churches where all they do is stand around and get everybody to clap while the pastors run around. And I don't care what pastors wear, but I'm saying this, pastors run around in expensive t-shirts and designer jeans telling everybody about how great everything is and how wonderful everything is. Everybody clap. Let's all get happy. Sometimes you got to get sad in church. Sometimes you got to get hurt in church. Sometimes I'm reading the Bible by myself in the morning, early in the morning, before the sun's even up. I'm sitting there and I'm reading my Bible. Why am I telling you this? I don't know, but I'm telling you this. I'm up there early in the morning reading my Bible before anybody else in my house is awake. And I get hurt. I'm all by myself. There's nobody else around me. There's nobody in that room to explain to me why this verse is hurting me. But it convicts me and it gets me right here. And it hurts. And I get better for it. Sorry about that. I didn't mean to put my hand in front of the camera. I was getting a phone call from a spam caller, and I know there was a little pause there in some of the recording. Just deal with that. I'm going to explain to you that the reason that Charlie Kirk died is more important than the fact that Charlie Kirk ever lived. He was a champion. He was the David to the Goliath of mainstream media, of the leftist agenda of what's the word I'm looking for? Secular left. He was the David to all that. But he was not Jesus. And I have a feeling that if Charlie Kirk could send a message to us from heaven, he would say, I'm not Jesus. Stop preaching Charlie Kirk. start preaching the Jesus that Charlie Kirk preached. Now, you have an option. Your option is, are you going to be a champion in your life? Or are you going to be defeated in your life? In my next video, my next podcast, I'm going to talk a little bit more about not being the underdog in your own story. But for right now, I want to encourage you to be the champion for God. Maybe you watch this, or you're going to listen to this on Spotify or YouTube, whatever, and you're going to say, I don't believe in God. Okay. You know what? That's your choice. You have the choice not to believe in God. I'm not going to give you the whole, oh, but God believes in you. You've heard that. I want you to tell me why you don't believe in God. That's it. I want you to tell me why you won't believe in Jesus. That's it. I'm not going to argue with you. I'm not going to fight you on it. I just want you to tell me why you don't believe. I can tell you why I do believe. I do believe in God, and I do believe in Jesus because it's the only thing that makes sense to me. It is. I can take my camera. See this right here? This is where I live. See that? See all these trees? See that right there? These trees had to be made by something. I believe that there's a divine creator that created these things. That's what I believe. You say, oh, somebody planted the seeds or the saplings or whatever and then grew. Sure, but those had to come from somewhere. All this came from somewhere. And the way it works, you ever think about it? And we say, oh, it evolved or it came by accident. You think about the way it works, the way it synthesizes sunshine and the way the roots go down, and some roots go this way and some roots go this way, and they go in all different directions, and different trees grow in different ways. And the way some roots will intertwine with each other and the trees will feed each other. But if you cut down one of those trees in that loop of trees, it doesn't kill all the trees. It's not like Christmas lights, right? Or if you take one Christmas light out of the old style Christmas lights, they all die. It's not like that with these trees. If all these trees were tied together and I were to cut one off in the middle and burn it for firewood, the other trees would go on living. It's not some symbiotic relationship necessarily that way, but they do feed each other sometimes and intertwine with each other. Why and how? The only way they could do that is if, one, they had some sort of sentient brain where they could communicate with each other, or two, if they were created and designed to do that. I don't know. I don't know how it works. I don't. I mean, you can look it up. Oh, this is what science says. Great. But now tell me why. Science can't tell you the why. It can only tell you the how in basic, simple terms that we understand. And how are we going to sit around and say that we use 10% of our brain and we only use 10% of our brain to figure out that we only use 10% of our brain? You realize how dumb that makes us sound? Really? Well, if we only use 10% of our brain to figure out we only use 10% of our brain, are we really only using 1% of our brain? Or 10% of that 10%? Or are we using 90% of our brain and we think we just have a lot more brain than we actually have because we're full of pride? I train all the time. The human body is a marvel to me. How it can grow and be strengthened, and how these things, these heavy circles that have no other purpose than to test me, how they build strength in this doesn't make any sense. I don't get it. I believe there is a God and we are divinely created. And everything around us is divinely created for a purpose and on purpose. Because I can't come up with an explanation through anything else that satisfies my curiosity enough to say, oh, that 100% makes sense. Honestly. That's why I believe. But it's fine if you don't believe. I'm not going to tell you that you have to believe to be a good person. I can only tell you what I believe and hope that maybe you can come to the same conclusions. But I yield that it is completely up to you. That's what I want to be a champion for. I want to be a champion for what I believe. I want to be a champion for what I believe because my family needs it, because my community needs it, because the world needs to hear champions speaking up for what they believe. What are you going to be a champion for? Kind of went off on a few different rabbit trails this time, but next time we're going to talk about not being the underdog in your own story. And I hope that I can be a little bit more concise with that one.